Welcome to the Mentality Podcast, a podcast where we discuss a number of issues that affect men on a daily basis. I am your host, Shortstack. And before we go on, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Today, I got with me one of my boys, OG. OG, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
What's going on, everybody? Like Short Sack said, my name is OG. First, I want to say thank you for having me on this show. It's been long overdue. I'm here in Stuttgart, Germany, with my family. I got a beautiful wife, Stephanie, and five kids. I'm 32 years old. What I do in the service, I help service military members and their personnel records. You know,
All right, all right. So, how long you been here in Germany?
I've been here going on almost 3 years. I leave here in July. We going to Georgia.
Oh, okay, okay. So, 14 years. You plan on retiring?
Oh, of course, man. That'd be foolish not to, man. Once you hit 10 years, man, it's just down here from then on. So you got to ride it out.
All right, all right. Well, I'm at 21, so I'm within that range to call it quits.
Oh, yeah, 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 man. You're
But
right
I,
there.
I'm gonna stick it out as long as I can. All right. So with that being said, you've been in the military for 14 years. You're over here in Germany. You got a family. You got five kids, I believe you
I
said.
got five.
All right. What are their ages?
The oldest one is 20, and then you go 19, 9, 7, and 5.
And your oldest is a boy, girl.
It's a girl. Yeah, she's in college right now.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So let me ask you a question. You've been in 14 years, you've traveled around the world, you've seen and experienced a number of different things. Um, what would you say is uh, one thing that has negatively affected you or someone that is close to you that you've seen in your time in?
I got you. I've been in the game almost 14 years, and one of the biggest things that I've seen is men mental health and its decline. In the military, we are asked to, get the mission done, and a lot of times it's like, if you're going through problems, going through situation, man, you gotta shove that thing deep inside and keep the mission going and keep it rolling. And I've seen that in others, and I've seen that within myself. And that's something that I see that is not spoken about, and I think it's important that we talk about it because there's men out there, they're struggling.
Okay, so let me ask you this question because I too have had my stint with mental health issues, especially earlier on in my career where I didn't necessarily know how to um, deal with the things that were occupying my mind, occupying my life from before I came in and leading up into my adulthood. But I heard you say that um, you had your own stint with some mental health issues. Tell me what kind of issues you were dealing with.
I think it's the pressure, you know, when you move up in rank and you have a lot of responsibility and a lot is expected out of you, and you got a family, um, it's a lot of pressure to maintain performance and exceed expectations while still managing a family. And a lot of times, you try to shoulder it, but it becomes overwhelming, and it can take a toll on your mental space because you don't want to let nobody down. You know what I'm saying? Because you got, while you in the service, you got people that you're responsible for, and you want to do the best job that you can do and take care of them. And then when you get home, you got your family that you want to make sure that you're taking good care of them as well. And so it can be a lot if you don't know how to manage your stress, or have, techniques that can help you de-stress and not get so overwhelmed.
Right. So, you know, with that being said, do you think that now that you're a little bit older, a little bit more wiser, do you think that you still face some of those same issues, or do you think that it has become easier to deal with? And you know, I, I asked that question because I know in my own personal life, um, what I went through, which was back in 2004, where I went into a deep depression to the point where I really gave a strong consideration to self deletion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of the issues that I've gone through since then um, could have led me down that same path because they were very drastic issues, and I still wasn't um, fully mentally capable of dealing with. However, I had learned a little bit about um, that particular situation in my life, and um, I was able to seek some help. It took me 8 years from that time period to do so, but during that 8 year period, it cost me because
Mm-hmm.
I was previously married. I'm married now. I have three kids, 15, 12, and a 2 year old firecracker. um
I got one of those too.
yeah. But during my first marriage, I went through hell, and I put my ex-wife through hell. But a lot of it was the baggage that I was carrying, and a lot of it was me not even realize that it was baggage that I was carrying. It was more or less me pointing a finger at uh, my ex-wife and blaming her for a lot of the issues that I had within me that I didn't even necessarily know
Mm-hmm.
that were there.
Yeah.
Like you're familiar with the Will Smith situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't want to go too deep into that because I covered that on one of my previous podcasts. But you know, to me, just my own personal opinion, and I know there's a lot of people who have difference of opinions in that
So
situation.
many.
Um, I saw a man who got backed into a corner, based off of everything that had been happening in his life recently, and he just snapped.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been that guy where I reached a point in my life where I was in the deepest, darkest hole that I had ever been in my life. And I just kind of snapped, and um, I became angry, and I was no longer the guy that I had been for the 20 plus years that I had been on this earth. I was a different guy.
Yeah.
Beforehand I was what they would call the nice guy, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was the guy everybody wanted to hang around with, um, because I was a nice guy. I was a funny guy,
You was open.
right? But at that point, I just kind of snapped, and I went and became angry, and I became f- unbalanced.
Man. You.
So, you know, and I could go into deep details about that, and
Mm-hmm.
we may get to that point.
Yeah.
But have you have you been in a situation where you know you were in that deep dark hole, and you had to crawl your way out of it? And if you were if you were in that situation like that, how did you crawl your way out of it?
Absolutely, man. First of all, man, I'm human, man. That's why at the end of the day, man, I'm not, I'm fragile. I'm fallible, man. I'm a human being, you know. Um, and yeah, I've had, dark moments. And I feel like I've had pockets, I've had, seasons where I've had dark moments. If you don't have dark moments, I'm not saying that everybody has them, but it's not uncommon. I'll use an example when I got here to Germany, and I tell people this story. When I got to Germany, it was a weird shift. Um, it was something that I can't even explain, but it didn't feel like home, right? I landed, and then I felt like I was just in another place, and that feeling of being in a different place and feeling not like was at home, it put my mind and soul into a space, and it stayed consistent.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Why do you feel like you weren't at home?
To this day, I really can't explain it. That's why when I talk to people, and they say, "What was it?" It's weird. I can't explain it. And I think a lot of times, man, when stuff happened to you, you may not be able to explain it. You may not be able to tell people about it, but all you know is that how it made you feel. You know, and I'm still, you know, we'll go deeper into um, to that, but I'm seeking therapy, and it's not like I'm going crazy, but I know something changed within me since I've been here, and I haven't been the same person. It's affected me in my work and in my household. To go deeper is I got here, and when you get in a certain headspace, whether it's negative or positive, if you're in a negative headspace, everything you see becomes negative. And so that's how it was for me when I first got here. And I don't know if it was a transition that I moved from the United States to Germany, and that transition was just maybe too overwhelming for me. But I know when I got here, it just a cascade of thoughts of just negativity just piled on top of me. Um, I think a lot of it had to do to with coming to a new location, coming to a new job. I got here before my family, so I think I was making sure, trying to get my family ready to come here. So I think I just got overwhelmed with being in a new location and trying to manage, making sure everything is getting ready and done and prep for my family to come here. So I think that's where my stress um, started to build, and my anxiety, and then the dark cloud formed, and it just stayed.
So, all right. So you got here. How long was it before your family arrived?
I think my family was. It took it was about a month and a half maybe before they got here.
All right. So, do you think that? Well, was this your first time being away from your family like that?
Nah, I've deployed before, so I've been away from my family, and so that's why it was weird, and that's why I can't explain it to you. And I say that to anybody that's going through mental health, or going through something where they can't really express themselves or talk to anybody about the emotions that they're feeling. Sometimes you may not know, you know. Sometimes you just might need somebody to just hear you vent, and that's okay. Because people, my wife even asks me sometimes, like, what caused it? And I'm like, I don't know. So I've deployed before, and I didn't have that issue. You know.
So here's my thought, right?
Hmm.
And tell me if I'm wrong, right, or whatever.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, right, we as men. Well, first off, let me ask you this question:
Okay.
at what time frame was this?
This was during the summer. I got here in July 13th
Of what year?
of 2019.
All right, so this was pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. Pre-COVID.
All right, so you were, so that means you were what, 29?
Yeah, 29. August 15 is my birthday, so yeah, 29
Uh,
going to 30.
All right. So you're 29 years old. You're in a foreign country, and you're essentially by yourself, right?
Mhm.
Now, I don't think that was enough, right?
Mhm.
That situation, the loneliness, the overwhelming with, changing duty stations, having to set up everything by yourself. Um, and just the stress of in processing. Oh, and by the way, the stress of, you know, um, having to worry about your family moving on the back end, right?
Mhm.
In a normal situation, that's probably not enough to, send you down a deep, dark
Mhm.
path, right?
Mhm.
Because, you know, we oftentimes are, situations like that aren't very uncommon.
Yeah.
But it's likely that, um, what happened to you was what I consider the closet effect.
Okay.
All right, and for anybody listening, this ain't you ain't gonna go read in no book or anything like that where they title it the closet effect, right? That's just the way in my mind. This is how I rationalize it, right? So when I think about the closet effect, right, I imagine, um, someone, and particularly men, because men are we're masters at compartmentalization, right?
Absolutely.
Um, we go through things, and oftentimes it's like, well, I got this, and this going on, so let me just take that and put it off to the side, and I will think about coming back to it later on, right?
Absolutely.
Oftentimes we don't, right? So what happens is, and I want you to visualize this, right?
Yep.
So you have a particular issue that happens in your life,
Mhm.
and it could be as early as your early childhood, right? You have an issue that comes up, and us as men are often told that we need to be strong, no crying, be tough, because that's what the world is going to ask of you. That's what life is going to ask of you. That's what your family is going to ask of you. Your wife, your kids are going to ask of you. So you bear the burden of carrying the weight on your shoulders, right?
Absolutely.
So oftentimes you don't think that you have the time or the capacity to address your issues. So what do? You package it up and you put it off in the closet
Mhm.
to come back and potentially deal with later. But oftentimes that's not the case. And then another issue comes along and you compartmentalize that and you shove it off in the closet. And then more issues come along during your life and you compartmentalize those and you throw them off into the closet.
Mhm.
And what is happening is over time, these issues are compounding. They're compounding, and they're
Absolutely.
they're 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 being shoved away in this closet. And then something comes along, something that others would look at and deem it the most insignificant thing that could ever happen in your particular life. But what it is it's the final straw.
Absolutely.
It's you trying to shove that one thing in your closet, and then everything else that you chose not to deal with, or forgot about, or whatever, that was, put into the subconscious of your mind,
Mhm.
comes all back onto you all at one time. And now you're feeling extremely overwhelmed. You're feeling like you have more weight on your shoulder than what you can bear,
Mhm.
and you find yourself in this deep dark hole. And you know you 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 get into this hole, and then you're looking up, and the world becomes so much smaller to you,
Mhm.
and you feel like you're insignificant.
Absolutely.
And you know oftentimes, depending on the person, depending on the situation, depending on circumstances, it could lead down a path of self deletion.
Mhm.
And so, self deletion, whenever I talk to people about my story or whatever, I tell them self deletion. The idea of self deletion was never a thought in my mind, but something happened and I found myself giving it a strong consideration.
Hmm.
Right. I wrote myself deletion letter,
Oh wow.
and I emailed it to everybody.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. I
Wow.
emailed it to everybody, and um, one person got a hold of it, or she read it, and she told somebody, and that person got it. That person told another person, and they got in touch with me. Now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, I'm gonna tell you right now, that person that came and talked to me, it didn't take away the hurt and take away the pain, but what it did do was take a little bit of pressure off the
Mm-hmm.
top, because I, um, I remember sitting in this person's office, and extremely overwhelmed with everything that I was feeling and that I was dealing with, and lying to this person's face
Mm-hmm.
that I was okay, with
Okay.
tears in my eyes, holding back, right? And I thank God
Mm-hmm.
for his love and grace, because you know I I don't think without him that I make it out of that situation alive. There was, um I can't explain to you how I
Mm-hmm.
got out of it, but I know that I did. um but I say that because I tell you this because you know oftentimes it's not you showing up in Germany going through whatever you were going through that 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 led you down that path. And the reason why I think that you can't explain it is because there's probably a whole bunch of things prior
Mm-hmm.
to that particular incident that has that led you to this point. What
Absolutely.
are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, man, thank you for sharing your story. I know we've talked, and I don't think we ever gone in depth to that, space. Um, and appreciate you sharing that story with me. But to answer your question, I do believe that. I do believe I do have some underlining things that I need to work on. And I feel that they were always there, but being in the States, I had certain outlets, that would let's just call it resiliency. My resiliency was high. Just like a ball, when you bounce a ball, it bounces back. My resiliency was way better versus when I got here. And so when I got here, when I had this, unexplainable shift in my aura or my vibe, or however you want to call it, my resiliency wasn't there. And so whereas before, where I had certain outlets, or I felt home, I could bounce back a lot quicker. Here I can't do that. It's hard. I try, but it's like the ball don't bounce back. You know what I mean? So you stay stuck in this mental space, right? And it's like you can't get out of it. Even if you know you're in this negative space, is like it's hard. And for a person that is not going through something mental, um you know you're like, man, how can you feel that way when you have, a family, you have a beautiful wife, you have beautiful children. You should be thankful, and I am thankful, but I still have this cloud over my head. And I'm trying. I'm praying, like, God help me. And it's gotten better, but I guess being here kind of, if anything, showed me that I have some things that I need to work on. And as you and I think you're right. There was issues that I had that needed to be worked out on. And I always tell people, like, ignorance is bliss, right? Because I've had these underlying issues, but I had distractions, so I wasn't really aware. Now I'm hyper aware of issues that I have, and while it is painful to deal with it or be in this certain mental state, I can start taking steps to fix it. Um, you know, um, going back to what you were saying about you being in this dark space, I was in that dark space, and I think my wife can attest to it. As I tried to like hide it from her, because I was just afraid to show vulnerability. I was afraid to show weakness, because the way I was brought up, weakness is not a good look. We don't talk about stuff like that. You
Well,
know.
it's funny that you should say that, right? Because um, you're absolutely correct, right? The stigma about men and being vulnerable is that of a negative one.
Absolutely.
Um, but it's also a dangerous one as well because the stats show that men are 4 to 5 times likely to self delete than women are,
Hmm.
and it's mostly prevalent in white males.
Hmm.
I think the study that I saw was for every 100,000 people, for every 100,000 males, 38.2 or something along that lines self delete, and then second are black men
Oh
it's
wow.
with 20.6 per every 100,000 males.
Wow.
And for our female counterparts, it's like
Mm,
two or three.
yeah.
And so, a lot of that has to do with um, naturally women are more emotional creatures,
Absolutely.
so they relieve their emotional baggage through crying, um, um, friends,
Hmm.
and they'll socialize their feelings and their thoughts, whether they be right or wrong is or indifferent, they still socialize those. And so oftentimes, you don't they're not carried around that weight. Now, not that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to
Hmm.
them, but you know for men, there's a negative stigma about being vulnerable. So let me ask you this question,
Yeah.
right? Because you said you tried to hide it, and that you weren't uh forthcoming with your thoughts and your feelings, right? And you weren't necessarily looking to be vulnerable. Did you have a discussion with your wife about how with this situation?
Not at first. It took a while because I was feeling emotions that I really couldn't express to her. And then also too, I was just embarrassed. Just we talking real talk. I was just embarrassed, because at the end of the day, I felt like I was ahead of the house. These emotions or feelings of sadness or I felt like I didn't want to bring it up to her because I felt like I had to maintain an image of strength. And so it took me a minute to talk to her about it, but I did. And my wife, um, the amazing woman that she is, she listened, you know what I mean? But, she listened, and, I don't know if she understood because I could tell like she really didn't understand, which is cool because it was something new to her. I've never expressed my feelings the way I did about how I was feeling to her. Um, but she did, just listen and just, kind of like, okay, I'm trying to understand what you're going through. Um, but I can tell you, and maybe you can attest to this, when you in a space um of confusion, especially for a man, I would say, and not to take away from women's, to say that they don't feel this way, but when you in a negative space and you're I would, maybe like a better word is emotional, um you know you don't like those feelings because you don't understand it removes you from your rational mind, your rational way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And you have these feelings, you're not thinking right. And a lot of times, especially in my case, I was when I did come, and talk to my wife, you know, while I know she was listening, I was looking for her for answers. You know what I mean? Like is where I was looking for her to understand, even though I
Mhm.
know it was something new to her. And so I'm like, I'm explaining this to you, like, and she was like, "Yeah, babe, I'm hearing, I'm trying to get it, but I don't understand." And that goes for people. And I'm don't mean to interrupt you. There'll be people that you express yourself to that may not understand. They never been in that space, and so one thing I had to learn that I couldn't take it out on my wife for not understanding because I think I felt like, dang, you're my wife. Um, why can't you understand this? Like, especially when, and then you feel like you're the only person feeling this way, and you want somebody to feel you. You know what I mean?
Eh, so it's funny that you say that, right? Because you know, up until recently, right? I've been on this kick as of late about this discovery into masculinity and how intersexual dynamics work between men and women, sexual attraction for men, sexual attraction for women, and the things that help make relationships better. Now, there's a number of podcasts that I listen to, and I don't let me I don't agree with everything that they say, but there are nuggets that I pick up along the way that have helped put pieces together of the puzzle of my masculinity
Mm-hmm.
that often for most of my life I was literally trying to put this puzzle piece together without the box, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally trying to put a puzzle together in the dark. And one of the things that they mentioned uh, is that women are unequipped to deal with male problems
Hmm. Absolutely.
because men are born rational, logical thinkers, and women are born with emotions and nurturing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they naturally they look at problems through an emotional lens,
Mm-hmm.
whereas men look at problems from a rational lens.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue that you were having is that you're looking at these issues through a rational lens,
Mm-hmm.
and you're separating the emotions from it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're expressing yourself from a rational standpoint, and your wife is looking at trying to understand your rational thoughts
Mm-hmm.
through an emotional lens. And so you know your wife is as I'm pretty sure she's ultra loving, and I think I met her once,
Mm-hmm.
and she seems like a very sweet woman. um she she doesn't have the tools that um to understand the world of what a male goes
Mm-hmm.
through. And so that's why she's listening to you,
Mm-hmm.
but she can't understand you.
No, no, absolutely. Um, you know, for me, I was expressing it to my wife, and I could appreciate that she was listening to me. You know what I mean? I can appreciate that she didn't judge me, knowing that I know she wouldn't judge me, but um, I was talking to male friends. I'm like, man, like I got one of my boys, Jay. I would reach out to him, and I was like, man, like I'm going through this problem. I can't explain it. And he's like, nah, bruh, like, welcome to the club. We all go through this as men. We go through spaces. Now, maybe different timing in different seasons, but we all go through this battle, that we call life. You know what I'm saying? So, um, mine's just happened to be when I got here. Um, but I would say, as a man, the reason why I state that you should seek mental health is because when you're in the space of like depression or you just anxiety ridden, you don't think like your normal, natural, rational, logical mind. You become emotional, and as a man, that's not your natural
Right.
state.
We're not trained to operate from an emotional
Yeah,
place.
absolutely. So imagine not operating as yourself. You're everything is emotional. And I'm not saying that you're crying or you're sobbing, but instead of thinking logically and rationally, everything you're thinking about is emotional. You and so you're operating in a space you don't understand. And it's confusing to you. That's why you can't explain it. I was like, that's why when you say, I don't know, you know, and so, um, I knew I wasn't myself, and so I did go and seek counseling, and things did get better, right? My family came. I was still in this headspace, but it's important for you to have resiliency, have things in your life that helps you bounce back. Because what's going to happen if you stay in the space of darkness or depression? It's like it becomes you. You create this rhythmic pattern and this way of thinking, and it becomes second nature.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? So you're always on this in this negative state.
Well, I don't necessarily think that it becomes second nature,
Mhm.
right? Maybe operating from an emotional place
Mhm.
comes to the forefront, right?
Mhm.
You
Okay.
you lose a bit of yourself, to you lose the logic and irrational thinking, and you start operating from an emotional standpoint. So, like I told you, like when I came out of depression, I was angry.
Mhm.
And let's not forget that anger is an emotion.
Mhm. Oh,
So I'm
absolutely.
I'm operating from an emotional standpoint, and it was literally like, if you looked at me wrong,
Mhm.
I would tell you off.
Mhm.
If I even thought that you was saying something about me, I would tell you off. And it didn't matter who you were. If you were a coworker, a friend, somebody on the street, somebody in the restaurant, like I was I was hyper emotional, right? And over time, it kind of tapered off, but I always was on edge,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And this was, I'm speaking from before I sought help.
Mhm.
you know I was always operating from a standpoint where I was always on edge, always ready to snap,
Mhm.
right? But here's the thing: the signs of that showed up in my life long. So this was 2004,
Mhm.
and that would make me 22, 23.
Mhm.
That l- that level of emotion showed up in my life back when I was 16. And
Mm.
I can tell you right now, up until I was 16, I was bullied.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I was bullied up until my early 20s. Um, so, but leading up to 16, I was bullied for a number of reasons. I
Mhm.
mean, every weird and name that you can call me, I was called, right?
Mhm.
Because there was a whole laundry list of reasons why people would make fun of me, right?
Mhm.
So, but I was still the nice guy, right?
Mhm.
I would go home and cry to my mom's, and I internalized it all. But I never was angry at people.
Mhm.
I never showed out. I never you know was was negative towards people. However, fast forward to I'm working my first job. My first job was working at Burger King,
Mhm.
um, flipping burgers, working the drive-through, and I actually liked the job.
Mhm.
Um, but one night, one of the managers said something to me sideways, and I don't remember exactly what it was, and I snapped.
Mm.
I went off. I cursed her out
Oh, wow.
and stormed off. And I left the job, and that was the first time I had ever showed anger,
Mm.
and it was because she said something negative to me.
Mhm.
But that was the first time it really showed up.
if you don't mind me asking, not to cut you off, what made this situation different from previous situations where you just took it on the chin and kept pressing?
To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you.
Mm,
But at that age, you're not putting things together where you're like, huh? Well, where did that come from?
mhm, mhm,
All I know is she pissed me off.
mhm,
And so I had to let her know what it was.
mm,
But it was out of my character.
mm.
Just kind of like the Will Smith situation. It
Absolutely.
was it was out of his character. So um fast forward maybe a year, something else happened. And my response was the same way.
Mm,
And then as I got older, the amount of time that would go by between episodes where I would snap off at somebody became shorter and shorter and shorter.
mm,
But here's the thing, I'm not putting those pieces together to realize that, there's something mentally going wrong, but all of the alarm bells are going off to anybody else who's watching,
mm,
who's paying me attention,
mm,
like that. And so, but nobody was paying me attention like that because
mm,
no one's trained other than psychologists and all that other. No one's trained to identify these kind of signals. So you know, fast forward 2004, boom, the final straw happens, and I'm gonna tell you right now, the situation that led to it was a very familiar situation to me.
mm,
It was a situation that I had experienced a number of times in my life. Um, but it was the final straw. And
mm,
then it just kind of it spiraled downhill from there. And you know, it took me till 2013 to finally seek help. I had sought help before from someone, but the counselor the therapist that I was talking to, she wasn't very good.
okay.
And so I think I went like once or twice and didn't end up going back. But then, in 2013, I found somebody who um asked the right questions.
Oh yeah. You when you going through a situation or um, a space where you need help, you got to go to a specialist, right? You got to go to somebody that is skilled and trained in the issues that you're going through, because you do have general counsel that give you some generic or general advisement or counseling, but you do have specialists that deal with OCD. And when I say OCD, people think of OCD like, oh, I gotta wash my hands, or I gotta have all my clothes color coordinated. OCD is a obsessive compulsive disorder, and that could be mental. You know what I mean? Like, that could be you having thinking patterns that's just obsessive and compulsive. So it's obsessive, but you're doing a compulsion to stop it. You know what I mean? So OCD is not just like, I like all my shirts, color coded, you know, in my closet, all my pants lined up like that. So, and then you got people that deal with anxiety. You got people that deal with depression. So you got to seek people that are skilled in those fields that you need help in. But I got a question for you. So in that space where you was like, where you just finally snap until you found help, what was the year span right there?
Okay, so um like I said, 2004 was the time where um I gave strong consideration to self-deletion, right?
Mm,
Um and from in 2005, um I got married,
mhm,
um and then from 2005 until 2013, um I was an angry individual.
mhm,
Let's be real. I was an angry individual. I didn't like people. I didn't trust no one. I didn't even trust my wife. Like,
mm,
she's not my ex-wife, but at that point in time, she was my wife, and I didn't trust her. I didn't trust nobody as far as I can throw them. The
Mm,
only people I trusted in my life was my kids.
mm,
Um, and so, I was always on edge, always on edge, always on edge, man. And I didn't sleep well.
mhm.
Um,
No peace.
I like it would be the simplest things that would trigger me, right? And you know, no one in my life was able to help me because they didn't understand it,
Mhm,
right? And so, fast forward, 2013, I ended up I ended up leaving. At that point in time, I was stationed in Illinois,
mhm.
and I got orders to go to Turkey, and but I had to go without my family,
Okay.
right? So I went without my family, and um, to be honest with you, I felt like this was gonna be a good opportunity for me because I was too through with everybody in my life, and so it was an opportunity for me to um, just have some separation,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And so I get to Turkey, and nothing is changing, right? I'm nothing is changing, and then my mom introduced me to the m- the book, The Love Dare.
mhm.
And there's a movie that goes along with it that I cannot think of the name of it off the top of my head. But I actually watched the movie first, and then, but when I watched the movie, in the movie, it's this guy, it's this married couple, and the guy is like the most angriest person that um you could ever meet, and he's putting his wife through hell, and she's basically fed up, and um she's entertaining someone else. And
Mhm,
so he goes on the he somebody gives him the book, and he goes on this journey, right? And as I'm watching the movie, I'm realizing, like, damn,
mhm.
that dude remind me of myself.
Wow.
Like, I could see him, I could see myself in him, and I'm like, that's what I look like.
Mm,
Like, because a lot of the things he was getting upset about would be the same way I was reacting. And
absolutely.
so I'm like, damn, that's how I look. And so um I picked up the book, and I went through the book, and I went through the book like 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
Right. And I started exercising some of the things that, well, exercising the book in my relationship. Now, granted, the relationship was far gone.
Copy.
My ex-wife at that time had checked out,
Mhm,
and shortly after that, we would wind up getting divorced. Um, but you know, going through that process, I realized, well, if this is how I'm acting, I need this to talk to somebody to help me understand why I'm acting this way. Why am I always on edge? And so I sought out counseling, and twice a week, this lady would come sit with me. She would come up to my job, um, and come sit with me for an hour during the day, and just you know help me understand, help bring up some of the traumas that I had, and help me understand, how they affected me, and um how they were causing me to react to things, and how I could go about better, you know, choosing different ways to think about things, and how to react and respond to things. But to add on to that, um, I started lifting weights.
mm,
I started working out. In the military, we work out, but it's mostly push ups, sit ups, and
okay.
running. But at that point in time, I was, I think, 2 years off of having left knee surgery, right? So I had gained probably like 20 pounds,
Mhm,
25 pounds, something like that. And I was kind of skinny, chubby,
mhm,
skinny fat, or as they like to say it. And so, I started working out, and I started dedicating myself to working out. And when I got into the gym, I would get lost, and I would be in the gym for like 3
oh, I
hours
know.
going in,
It's therapy.
and um my body started to change. I
Mhm,
started to get put on some muscle, which, you know, because of that, I changed the way that I dressed, changed the way that I ate, and all of those things kind of helped me, you know, get to a better headspace. But here's the thing that I've come to learn. That was 2013, and it's now 2022.
mhm,
You know, although I know how to deal with situations now, I still have to seek help. Still have to seek help. Still have um to you know voice what I need to voice and not compartmentalize stuff, because compartmentalizing things for too long becomes dangerous. And so um it's important to have conversations like these,
absolutely.
uh with people that that you can trust. And granted, they may not be able to give you the advice that's going to help you, see past it or whatever,
Mhm,
but they can relate,
mhm,
because as men, we go through a lot of the same things, right? Our
yeah,
situations and the people and places and things that are involved may be differently,
mhm,
but oftentimes it's the same thing.
mhm. Ain't nothing different, man. And that's why I was talking about, like, a rhythmic pattern, because your thoughts kind of drives your emotions, right? And so when you get into a space, a negative space, and like you say, you were just angry, always on edge, you became that, almost like that angry person that's always on edge. You know what I'm saying? You became a different person. Now you still won, you still short stack, but you you was always on edge. You know what I mean? Like, you knew the difference. That's why you seeked help. You
Hmm.
know, and so and that's when I was saying that you form a pattern, a way of thinking, um, and it becomes you. And sometimes people have this way of thinking, and they think like that for years. They're like that for years, and without seeking help, and it's dangerous because during that process and during that time, while you're always on edge, you're always angry, you cause collateral damage, especially having a family, having kids, married. You know what I mean? A lot of times, the smallest things will set you off, and you'll take it out on people. It be the smallest things.
Well, if you look at the age range
Hmm.
of self-deletion in men, right?
Hmm.
It's mid 30s to mid 40s, right? That's the highest range. And when I think about it, the our early 20s, right? We're out there in them streets,
Hmm.
wilding,
Hmm.
like
Distractions.
in the club.
Hmm.
Like, I tell you, in my 20s, I was in the club on Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and if we ain't got to work on Monday, I'm in there on
Sunday
Sunday
night.
night.
I got you.
And I would be out there to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And if I
Hmm.
had to work the next day, I'd come in, hit the pillow for about an hour,
You
and
good to go.
and then boom, get up, shower, go to work,
Absolutely.
hungover, whatever, right? So oftentimes, and you play video games, and you do all of these things, right?
Hmm.
And all those are fine, but let's call it what it is, right? Those are distractions,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
Those are distractions. And you know if you're continuously battling with with life itself, um it's easy to get it's easy for those distractions to keep you, you know, keep your mind occupied and keep you um from dealing with those things.
Hmm.
But as you get older, you start to, yeah, you look and you're getting married, or you're getting into a serious relationship, you're having children,
Hmm.
but those things that kept you distracted, they go they go, they're no longer a part of your life.
Or they're
And so
non-existent.
and so now you're left with life and your thoughts.
Absolutely.
You're left with life and those problems that you
Hmm.
didn't deal with, and the problems that are going to continuously come every single day.
And they're there.
Because as a man, when we leave out the door, especially as a black man,
Hmm.
and I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but we know what it is, right? You
Absolutely.
know, when you leave out the door, you're continuously under attack, continuously under attack, and at times it can be a lot to deal with.
It's a burden.
Um, it can be a lot to deal with, and so it's important to have a group of men in your life that you can express these things to, and express it when it's fresh,
Hmm.
right? Because yeah, you can come home and express those things to your wife, um, but let's be real, right?
We
As wonderful as a wife you have, and as loving as a wife that I have, she'll understand.
don't understand.
She'll understand, and it goes both ways.
Absolutely.
I don't understand the I don't always understand the things my wife goes through, and I tell her straight up, I am ill equipped to deal with your problems.
Absolutely.
Why? Because I'm going to give you the rational, logical answer to your problem,
Hmm.
but you're going to view it from an emotional standpoint,
Yeah.
and I don't really know how to give you that emotional answer that's going to satisfy, or make you feel better.
Sometimes it's not even about, and that's why I had to learn when it comes to my wife, and I was looking for her to solve certain things that I was going through, and she couldn't do it. You know what I mean? And not because she didn't want to, she didn't know how to, she wasn't equipped to. And so I found that, talking to my father, talking to men that has been in the same space as me, that I could relate to, kind of gave me perspective, and kind of gave me clarity on some of the certain issues that I was going through. Now, of course, I did go to counseling because, like I said, like the people that I was going to, they weren't you know you know professionals in that field of therapy, but it did make me feel like I wasn't alone in this fight, because you can get in a space where you feel like you're alone. You're the only one that's going through this thing. And I would tell anybody out there that you this ain't a uncharted path. These are not paths that has not been walked through. So don't ever feel that you've nobody's ever dealt with that. And
Well,
so
I don't think that people, that men in particular, feel like that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so the thing is that your group of guy friends are they're not fully equipped to deal with
Oh no.
to deal with your problem. But what they can help you with are those things that are hovering on the surface, right? The immediate things that you may be going through, and but you're gonna need to seek help
Hmm.
in order to dig out those paths. So Will Smith is now you know seeking mental health, but in that particular situation, the way he dealt with at the Oscars, he had Denzel Washington, Bradley Cooper there, and there's one other guy that is the Tyler Perry,
Hmm.
um, he had those group of men right there to help him in that immediate state,
Mhm.
right? They help him to back him off the ledge,
Mhm.
right? And that's what your guy friends do. They back you off. They back you off the ledge. But they should also be telling you, hey bro, you need to seek help. Like you need
Mhm.
to and make it okay for make you feel like it's okay to do so,
Mhm.
right? Because the thing is any man that's listening to this, they need to understand that seeking help is a sign of strength, and
Absolutely.
it is not a sign of weakness.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, it helps you become a better man.
Mhm.
It becomes you help. It helps you become a stronger man, not only for yourself, but if you're in a relationship, whether it be a girlfriend, a wife, being a single father, whatever. It helps you become a better boyfriend, a better husband, a better father,
Mhm.
um, because it gives you that release, right?
Mhm.
You no longer have you ever walked through the airport and uh, you got a ton of bags.
Mhm.
You carrying around a ton of bags with you. It is the most difficult thing to do, right? Especially when you got one bag that's got wheels on it. You got a book bag. For us military folks, we got a duffel bag that don't got no wheels.
Shoot.
Just two straps that you could barely fit on your back.
Absolutely.
And you may got what they call a bag or a C bag, and if you're deploying, you may got a weapon,
Mhm.
right? So you carrying around all this stuff, and it is the most. And you ain't got you ain't got no one of those carts, right?
No, you.
It is one of the most difficult things to do, right? And it is exhausting,
Mhm.
and so imagine that that's what it's like carrying around emotional baggage, right? It is exhausting.
Mhm.
Um, and it is difficult to maneuver through life because life is going to keep throwing bags at you.
Absolutely.
And so it's important to relieve yourself of those bags because it's easier to carry around one, which is, what you may go through in a single day,
Mhm.
than it is to carry around, 20 plus years of things that you've experienced, you know, all from the smallest things to the biggest traumas.
Absolutely. I would say this too, like you said, you know, I experienced it about 2 weeks ago. Traveling with my in laws and my children from Paris. Carrying all those bags, and it gets heavy because you got young children and can't help you carry the bag. So you carry all that, but it it
Man,
it,
you
it
got five.
weighs on
You
you.
got 5 kids. You better put them kids to work, man.
uh, you know, it gets heavy, man. And that's where therapy comes into play. Helping you to not, to have techniques to help you unload those burdens or that baggage, and bringing it back to what you stated about having male friends that can get you off the ledge and bring you back so you can have that opportunity to seek therapy. I would say that you need to have friends that give you sound counseling and advice, because you do have the ones that give you advice, but all they may give you the advice to let's go out and yes, while going out can help de-stress, but you want to make sure you're doing healthy things to bounce back. And and talking about counseling, you need have some supportive friends around you. And for the most part, I think that's what kind of helped me out, is that I had friends that went through it, and they were a good sounding board, and they did provide wise counseling on how to you know first of all seeking help, and what steps they took to improve their mental state. And so that thing that's very important. So yes, finding that, getting those techniques, because those baggage, they weigh on you. You know what I mean? Then you become angry. and grumpy.
Well, here's the thing, right? We as men, we have a responsibility for um, ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And then we have a responsibility for our loved ones and everything else that falls underneath ourselves. We're the top of the food chain. We're the top of the pyramid. We're the head of the households, the leader, whatever title you want to put to it, you know. Um so it essentially starts with us.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, um we bear the burden of figuring out the correct path, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so it is important for um, men to understand that our we have so much riding on our shoulders,
Mhm.
right? We have so many people um, that depend on us, and
Absolutely.
understand this, especially for the young men. The people that are dependent on you haven't even been born yet,
Mm.
right? Your future kids are dependent on you, being the best version of yourself
Absolutely.
every single
Yeah.
day. One of the things that I've learned recently is that I have a responsibility as a husband to be the absolute best man that I could possibly be every single day. I asked my wife this question. I said, "What made you choose me?"
Mhm.
Right? Cuz you're a woman, a very attractive woman. You could have had anybody else. Um, you could have had a man that's taller,
Mhm.
a man that made more money, that checked so many other boxes that I don't necessarily check, right? That some other woman, may not even look my way, right?
Mhm.
Which is fine. I'm not complaining about it.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I said, "What made you choose me?" And her answer was simple: "You were the best man for me."
Mm.
And so we had that conversation early on in our marriage, and I I, I understood it for its literal text,
Mhm.
but I didn't necessarily understand um, what that necessarily meant in the grand scheme of things.
Mhm.
And shout out to the guys over at the Fresh and Fit podcast. You know, I don't necessarily always agree with everything that they talk about, but there's a lot of information that they provide to men that if they catch it at a young age,
Mhm.
it can potentially change their life for the better. But one of the things that I learned is that um, I have a responsibility to be the best man that I can be every single day for my wife.
Absolutely.
Right? I cannot afford to slip up
Mhm.
and to not be that man.
Mhm.
Now, don't get me wrong, doesn't mean that everything in my life is gonna go right,
Mhm.
but I'm always striving and pushing, to continuously better myself. And sometimes I fall down, and I gotta pick myself up and dust my shoulders off,
Absolutely.
as Jay Z would say,
Yeah.
and keep pushing, get back on the horse, and ride out.
If you don't mind me saying something, as you stated, you have to be the best man you can be for your wife and your children.
Well, it starts with myself,
No,
though.
no, it starts with yourself. But that's why I'm coming to say too. You know, make sure you give yourself grace because remember we human. So at the end of the day, you said it right. You know, we may not be 100% every day, but as long as we picking ourselves up and being deliberate in our pursuit of being great men, that is the goal.
Yes,
Man.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say that is because men have to understand that it's part of the burden of being a man
Mhm.
is that you have to continuously improve yourself,
Mhm.
you know, and you don't have to do it all in one, you don't have to try to do it all in one shot, right? First things first is get your mental health straight, right?
Absolutely.
Get help, sit down with a therapist, and you may not even think that anything is wrong, um because for the longest time I didn't know something was wrong with me, right? But you may not think that something is wrong, but just having that conversation, and letting them do what they do.
Mhm.
Be You go in and you be willing to open yourself up to let them in and let them do what they go to school for,
Mhm.
what they get trained for. You know, when you do that, it takes so much weight off of your shoulders,
Mm.
which allows you to be a better husband,
Mm.
be a better father, be better in the gym, be better with your money. Because
Mhm.
oftentimes, right? Here's the thing, right? A lot of men that go out and blow money, waste money, eh, it's because they're lacking somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
It's because, and don't get me wrong, there ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm gonna tell you right now, if I had money like some of these dudes got money, I would give me some nice stuff. I would
Absolutely.
give me some
Why
nice
not?
stuff, right? But it I understand that there's other people that are relying on me, so I can't afford to go out and blow it, right?
Absolutely.
So, but oftentimes, you know, this happens because someone is lacking somewhere else in their life,
Mhm.
and they may not even understand that they're lacking. And so, just sitting down with somebody and hashing these issues. There was a video on YouTube. Sam Acho, I believe his name is,
Mhm.
did an interview with Lil Wayne,
Okay.
and Lil Wayne talked about how, he nearly self deleted himself at the
Mm.
age of 12,
Wow.
or I think it was, yeah, at the age of 12.
Too
And
young.
so, um, but that's Lil Wayne, right?
Mhm.
You look at him, and you would probably never have guessed that. Um, because he had this great and successful career, right? But the reality of it is that there was almost no Lil Wayne.
Almost. Yeah.
And so, if he can have issues and almost self delete at 12 years old, what makes you think that you or I are any different?
Absolutely. One of the things that I've been mindful of, is others. In the military, they preach about, watching out for signs or red flags, but you do have people that, maybe show red flags or signs, but you just kind of like, maybe brush it off or think like, oh no, they're good. They're just going through whatever. I myself, because I know I personally had a close childhood friend who self-deleted themselves. And That was one of the toughest moments that I've had in my life because um, I was stationed in Tampa, Florida, and I would go to my folks' house, which was about 3.5 hours away, and I would go there every weekend, and I would see my boy. And last saw him on a Sunday, and we was talking, and he was like, "Man, I think I'm gonna come up to Tampa, man. I need to like kind of just get away and and just kind of just recharge." And I told him, "Man, come on by. I got my spot. You can stay around. You can stay there for however long you want to." And that was on a Sunday, and then on a Tuesday, that following Tuesday, my dad called me, and he told me that he self deleted himself in his car, and it hurt. It hit me hard, and I kind of blamed myself because I was like, man, you know, I I should have saw signs, and they were minor signs, but I was young. I was like, oh, man, that's just my boy. He's doing what he normally does, and I was hurt. I kind of blame myself for not 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 being there for him, and so it's important. And we see it as Little Wayne, him almost self-deleting himself at 12. That's a young age. You know what I mean? So whether you're a celebrity or not, people go through stuff. Men go through stuff. Women go through stuff. But talk about men. Um, you can be the top boss in charge. You know what I'm saying? But you going through your own space that people don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their challenges that they go through. And just because you see these person, these people, they got money, they got the fame, that don't mean they got peace.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And the thing is that um peace is um peace for you, peace for me looks completely different,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um and the peace for the next person looks completely different.
Hmm.
You know, y- I'm more of a an introvert.
Hmm.
That may be hard to believe
It's hard to
because
believe.
I'm a very social person
Absolutely.
with people that I let in my circle,
Hmm.
right? But for the most part, like when I go out and I suffer from social anxiety, right?
Hmm.
I get very uncomfortable in groups of people that I'm unfamiliar with,
Hmm.
right? And it in certain instances it manifests itself physically, right?
Hmm.
It goes beyond mentally, and I start sweating,
Hmm.
or my heart starts pounding, or I get
Hmm.
like chest pains
Absolutely.
or stuff like that, right? Um, but once you open up to me and or you speak to me or whatever, um, I'm good.
Hmm.
And if I had a little drink in my system, I'm more likely to become a little bit more social.
Even
My
better.
my extrovert side will start to come
Come
out.
out.
But I say that because peace for me is sitting on the couch, you know, watching YouTube, trying to better myself,
Hmm.
whether I'm watching podcasts or, studying, working on, doing something for school or whatever like that. But peace and quiet is how, I find peace, right?
And
You
that
know,
can
and
be an addicting thing.
yes, it very well can be.
Hmm.
Um, and I honestly didn't even realize that until my wife like pointed it out to me one time where she was like, you know, all you do is sit over there in the corner and watch YouTube and boom boom boom. And in my mind I'm like, well, you know, I'm working all day
Yeah,
long.
yeah, yeah.
Like I just need a break.
It's my me time.
But I found myself doing it on the weekends, right? And not spending
Mm.
time with my wife. So, she had to correct me. You know,
You
it
know,
is what it
we
is.
need that sometimes.
Yeah. But it's important for you to find peace, right? And
Hmm.
um help those individuals in your life understand how you find peace, right?
Hmm.
So like I had explained to my wife, like this is my me time. This is how I decompress after, going leaving out the door and having to face the world for 12, 14, 16 hours out of the day. Like I just need time to decompress. And you know me and you can have a conversation or spend quality time after I decompress, because if I don't decompress,
Hmm.
I'm not going to be any good to you anyways,
Not at
right?
all.
And so um it's important for men to discover their peace,
Hmm.
right? And meditation, hobbies, fitness, those are all important things to finding that peace. Like when I go to the gym, I got my music on and I'm locked in for the next hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours, depending on how much time I got.
Yeah.
I'm locked in and it's peaceful.
Absolutely. That's just like me. And that goes to resiliency. What helps you reset? What helps you bounce back? The gym for me is a great place for me to go. Like you said, put my headphones on, listen to my music, lift weights, decompress, and it also gives you a good sense of well being, knowing that you lift weights, you looking good, you gaining a little muscle, makes you feel better.
And it's part of that being the best version of yourself. So
Absolutely.
you knocking two birds out with one stone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, when you take care, I say this: women have this thing called self care.
Hmm.
Men, we have our own way of self caring for ourselves, whether it's you know going to the gym, playing sports, doing your hobbies, but you gotta find these things and you gotta do it, and to be upfront with your spouse, or maybe not saying upfront, but just talk to them, just like, hey, I'm gonna go to the gym, or I'm gonna go, play some poker with the homies. You know what I'm saying? So, is a way of resetting yourself so you can be a better man for your wife and your kids. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I think it's important that you do it with purpose,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Understanding that I need this time for myself,
Mhm.
right? My wife knows that in the morning I go to the gym, like, and I do it Monday through Friday, and I also go on Saturday, and try to take a break on Sunday. But if I can't get to it in the morning,
Mhm.
for, excuse me, for whatever reason, then boom, when I get off work, change clothes, I'm going to the gym. And
Absolutely.
so, because that time is important to me, because physical fitness is a part of my job,
Absolutely.
right? But it's also a part of my self growth, right? It's a part of being the best version of myself,
Hmm.
and it's also a way to decompress mentally,
Absolutely.
right? It doesn't mean that the problems that I have go away,
Mhm.
uh, but it pushes it down. It pushes it down until I can talk to somebody.
And I know I keep saying resiliency, but that's what I mean. You doing these things, it doesn't stop, whatever problems you have. They're there until you resolve it. But being able to bounce back and still keep moving forward is the goal until you find help to fix the issues that you're going through. And when, like I said, when you're in these certain headspaces, where you're in a dark place, your resiliency, it may not be you may not bounce back so quickly. You kind of maybe might lose interest in some of the stuff that you used to once do, that you used to love doing. And so you kind of, you know it ain't gonna happen overnight. But one of the things that kind of helped me was, a kind of, because it takes you within you to know that, okay, I need to help. Self-awareness, I need to help myself, I need to get better. Once I caught that, and I think I had a feeling like, I don't like feeling like this, especially when I see my kids and I'm not really playing with them because I'm like in my head. I was like, I gotta fix this. But slowly and surely, I got better. you know Started off by talking with people, started by talking with my homies, and talking to my friends, my male friends, and that helped a little bit by bit, incremental, get out that dark space to where I could then go talk to a person. And then during those conversations, talking about maybe ways that I can help get back to my regular self. Let's start going back to the gym. you know I'll start creating a plan to get back in the gym. Then that just kept on escalating and opened up different avenues for me to get out that dark space that I was in. So, it may not happen overnight, but bit by bit, step by step, it can happen. You just got to be deliberate in the pursuit of trying to get better.
Right. And so here's my question to you, right?
Mhm.
How many boys you got?
I got two boys.
What are their ages again?
uh Roman will be 8 in July, and Ezra is 5.
Right. All right. So Not really speaking to the 5-year-old because he's still young in his understanding.
Yeah.
So for your 8-year-old,
Hmm.
because my son is 12, and well, my oldest son is 12 and my youngest son is 2. Um, what kind of what kind of um, what kind of message are you imparting into him to help him as his journey starts to as he starts to make that journey into young adulthood, because he's gonna start entering into the age where you know he's gonna start having to face the cruel reality of life, because let's be real, right?
Hmm.
Some kids are they're very cruel, and
Hmm.
they're intentionally cruel.
Yep.
And we could argue that has something to do with upbringing and,
Hmm.
and whatnot, but the reality of it is that kids will say whatever comes to their mind.
Absolutely.
So how have you started to prepare him for having to deal with those things, and also to not be one of those kids that um is cruel
Well,
or becoming mentally challenging for someone else?
okay. I'll start off. So I grew up in a two-parent home, right? And my dad raised me in the church, and he raised me in a way to be a man, a good man of God, a gentleman. And my dad, um, he talked to me. Now he'd give me the belt if I needed it, but he talked to me and explained things to me, and he was open with me. You know what I mean? He wasn't the type of father that was like, don't show emotion, don't, you know, suck up them, them tears. My dad was open. My dad had self-awareness, like, hey, you're human, you're gonna have challenges in life. It may be painful, yeah, you may shed tears, but you gotta, one thing he did instill, you may shed tears, but you still gotta get up and keep on trucking forward. And with my boy, I do the same with him. Like, he sometimes cry a little bit more than I would like him to, but but I never want to shut him down. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I always allow him to have that space to be able to express himself, but I also let him know that you can't wallow in that headspace of, like, just sadness and no, poor me. You got to keep, got to get up and keep on moving. Um, and far as, being cruel or, we don't raise, me and my wife don't raise our kids to be that way. If I ever hear any of my kids, talking crazy or being mean or belittling somebody, they're gonna get the belt, because I don't play that. Like, we don't raise you to do, to be like that. You know better than nobody else. And in God's eyes, everybody's equal. So for my kids, I've never had nobody come and tell me my kids were, um, you know, bullying their kids, saying anything bad about them, because my kids know I don't play that. Respect everybody. You know what I mean?
And I definitely can understand that, because it's kind of how I've raised my oldest son. He's very mild mannered, right?
Mhm,
He's very soft spoken.
mhm,
He kind of sticks to his video games, and he don't really the way that I raised him was that you know be the kind of kid that looks out for people, right?
absolutely.
Now you're not fighting or doing anything like that, and show respect to everyone, right?
Absolutely.
But also at the same time make sure that people respect you.
No.
Um, however, what I will tell you is that, you know, because I'm just now understanding um the intersexual dynamics between men and women, right? The What women look for, what men look for, um how, biologically, things operate between men and women. um I now have a responsibility to prepare him for those type of things,
Mhm.
because those kind of things, right, may not affect him now at the age of
Mhm.
12,
Mhm.
right? You know, gonna be turning 13 this year. Um, but it will affect him as he graduates high school and starts to make a life for himself. And he's having to go out into the world, because at that point, right, it's um I heard somebody say that as men we have to become.
Mhm.
We have we're not born with our value. We have to create
Mm.
our value.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And so, spend your time working on yourself continuously.
Mhm.
Mentally, always ensuring that you're in a good headspace. And if you can't get there on your own, seek help.
Mhm.
Talk to somebody who you can trust. Talk to somebody, a counselor,
Mhm.
a therapist, a pastor, you know, whoever that you can trust. If you don't feel like you can come talk to me as your father, that's perfectly okay.
Mhm.
But go talk to somebody, right?
Somebody, somebody.
Right. So focus on your mental health. Focus on your fitness. Focus on getting money.
Mhm.
You know, um, focus on achieving your goals.
Absolutely.
Focus on everything that you need to do in order to be the best version of yourself,
Mhm.
right? Before you even think about bringing a woman into your life and starting a family and um, raising kids, because if you don't get those things right, you're going to create a cycle
Mhm.
that continues on down the road. Because if you don't do it, your children aren't going to do it. Their children aren't going to do
Mhm.
it. Their children aren't going to do it. So I have a responsibility now that I have this knowledge,
Mhm.
that I impart that knowledge into him. Especially now that he's starting to go into his teenage years, and then as my youngest son comes up, to impart that knowledge into him. Because I saw an article the other day. I saw not an article, but uh, um, uh, um, a tweet where um, a young lady was the question was about emasculation in men, right?
Mhm.
And somebody responded to that post and said that we as men can't blame somebody else for our problems.
Mhm.
We have a responsibility to ourselves,
Mhm.
and we got to get ourselves right,
Mhm.
and not put the blame on anybody else. And you know, I think that's 100% true.
I agree with that 100%. I agree. Putting the blame on somebody, it don't alleviate the issues. You know, I believe you have a responsibility as a man, as an adult, as a person, man or female. At a certain age, when you're young, a lot of times, if something traumatic happened to you, you may not have had the strength, or you were young, you may not have had somebody to protect you. And yes, it's unfair and it's sad and it's unfortunate, but as you grow into adulthood, you have the responsibility to find ways or find help to 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 fix whatever issues that you have, um, inside you, or to help with dealing with past trauma, because nobody's going to do that for you. And as you get into adulthood, like I said, like there's a lot of collateral damage that could happen if you don't do that for yourself, especially as a man. If you, as you stated, prior to getting married or having children, if you don't correct or resolve issues that you have, it could be detrimental to your family. And your kids feel that energy, man. Like, they see it, they feel it, and they look up to daddy. And you don't never want your kids to see something that might be negative within you and thinking that's normal, or thinking, okay, if you do treat your wife a certain way because of how you were brought up, or and even the lack of not having a parent or a father in your life. And then, like I said, it's unfortunate, and I do feel for people that didn't grow up with a father or both parents in the household. But I do feel that as you have your own kids, be that parent that you wish you had, um, for them, so that cycle is not repeated, and that cycle does not continue, because at the end of the day, your kids, they look up to you. They respect you, they look up to you, they follow it. My kids, man, everything I do, they watching, they can regurgitate everything I say. um, my kids like to reenact what me and my wife do, how we talk to one another, so they see that, they mimic that, and
Absolutely.
they carry that into their relationship. So it is important to set that example. But in order for you to set that example for them, you have to be mindful and awareness of whatever issues you have, and be able to correct them. So.
All right. So at this point, we're gonna bring this podcast to a close.
Mhm.
But as we go off the air, I just want to let everybody out there know, especially the men, is that even if you haven't identified any problems in your life, or you may think that you don't have any issues, still take the opportunity to sit down with somebody, whether it be a pastor, a preacher, um, a therapist, a counselor, someone, and just talk about things that you may be going through in your life, or talk about things that you may have gone through, and especially to the younger guys, right? It's important for you guys, because you may not be married, or you may not have a wife, and you may not have kids, but at some point in your life, you're gonna get there, and you want that relationship to be the best relationship that you ever have, because you don't want to 10, 20 years down the road be divorcing three times, and be have 6 kids by 12 different baby mamas.
Mhm.
That math don't even add up, but whatever.
No, we get what you coming. We understand. You
Yeah,
feel it.
that math don't add up. But the point is that it's important to take care of yourself, um, mentally, physically, spiritually. But it definitely starts with with you mentally, and so because your life depends on it, your legacy depends on it, your future depends on it, um, and those people that may not even be in your life yet are dependent on it,
Absolutely.
and they may not even know who you are at this point. So you know every man out there should be seeking help, having a conversation, because let's be real, we've all had traumas, experiences, and I want everybody to understand this: no trauma, no experience, no situation is greater than the other. What affects you may not affect me the same way, and what affects me may not affect you the same way, but it still is trauma.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it still needs to be addressed. It still needs to be dealt with. So, um, guys, if you're listening to this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.
Do that.
Um, but seek help. You know, do some research. Find somebody that you feel safe and comfortable with opening up with, and you know, it 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 may be your wife.
Mm-hmm.
It may be your girlfriend. It may be your mother. It may be your father. It may be your brother, your cousin. Anybody that you feel safe and comfortable with. Open up to them. Tell them what's going on, the things that are affecting you, um, and take it a step further. Seek help. Seek professional help, so that you can come out with a clean slate, ready to conquer the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we all know, you know, this is life is a continuous boxing match.
Mm-hmm.
You may get hit, and you may have to hit back, but it doesn't mean that those hits don't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, with that being said, this is Shortstack with the Mentality Podcast, the podcast where we discuss a bunch of issues that affect men on a daily basis. And OG, before we go off there, is there anything you want to say to everybody out there?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, Short Stack says, you have a responsibility to seek mental health as a man, to make sure your mental state is right for you and your lineage, your unborn child, your wife that you haven't met yet. You're preparing yourself to be the best man that you can be for them, and for your future. And I want to just appreciate you, give my appreciation for having me on this podcast. Hopefully, we can do some more of this. And I do think, this is an important message for all men, that may feel like, that, um,
They're
they're
in this thing alone.
alone. What I'm saying? You're not alone. I went through it. Short Stack went through it. So, there's, as men, we go through stuff too. So, you know, seek mental health, seek advisement. You know, that's all
All
I got.
right, everybody. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, and we love you guys. And until next time, we out.
Out. Peace.